Indie Beacon Radio with host B Alan Bourgeois. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Indie Beacon Show. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and I have with us Barbara Francis. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
So, Barbara, you have an interesting life story. So let's start with that, okay? Because you started off wanting to be a nun, but things changed. So what happened?
Well, I decided I didn't want to be a nun. I was in a convent for 4 years. I had not gone through any of the, taking vows or anything like that. And I decided that I wanted to perhaps do something else. So I left and went to college, graduated, and then I became a stewardess for American Airlines. And I worked for them for 2 years. And at that time, if you got married, you couldn't be a stewardess. Of course, now they're called flight attendants, I think. And so anyway, so I left that and got married, had 2 children, and I was a teacher for 25 years. And did some other work then for the government. And then after I retired, I decided I would try my hand at writing. And that's pretty much up to the present date. I've, done a lot of interesting little jobs. I was a cocktail waitress in Lake Tahoe for a while during my college years. Can't think of anything right now, but anyway.
Well, let's go back to your college time for a moment, because in your college time, you got a degree in the arts. Is that correct?
Yes, in English, I have a degree in English and theater arts, and also a minor in French.
Okay, so your theater arts, if I understand, kind of gave you that inspiration to write screenplays and things of that nature down the road. Is that?
That's right. I was in middle school as a theater arts teacher, and at that particular time, there weren't really any plays that I considered to be appropriate for that particular age group. They were either too immature or too advanced. So I started writing plays for my students. And that's when I sort of got the idea that, hey, maybe I can do this. I had one day my students were working on a play, and a particular scene wasn't working, and I said, okay, let's stop, come on. And so I went to my desk and I was writing, scratching out and changing things around, and this little girl I had her arm around me over the desk, and she says, oh, Miss, you're a genius, you should do this for a living. So I thought, oh, from the mouth of babes. But I didn't do anything about that because I was, I was teaching, and as a teacher, I really didn't have any time to write. But then as my children got older, I did start writing screenplays in the summers. And so then that's when I had quite a few screenplays. I had several of them optioned. But then I decided that I like to just do my own thing in my own way. When you have a screenplay, you've got to collaborate with so many people. And so that's when I decided I would go to novel writing. And that's that.
Okay. So, I still want to go back a little bit, back to being a flight attendant, a stewardess at that time. Because that was during the highlight of being a stewardess, wasn't it? In the glory years?
That was the coffee, tea, or me age.
So there's a lot of stories there, aren't there?
Yeah, there's some stories, some interesting ones.
Any of them that you've chosen to write or work on in the future?
No.
No, not that exciting, huh?
Well, maybe that's yet to come. I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was finished.
Okay. Well, your first book is Lloydie's Adventure, Facing the
Lottie's
Moss.
Adventure. Mhm.
So tell us about that, because I mean, she on the cover she looks like an innocent little girl just with her puppy. Nothing about monsters or anything. So where's that all come together?
Well, I got the idea for Lottie's Adventure when my children were little. I have a boy and a girl. I read Huckleberry Finn to them, and I, this was a wonderful story about the adventures of a little boy. And I thought, there really aren't any really interesting stories for little girls like that. So years later, I decided I'm going to write a story about a little girl who is like a Huck fan. Now, I'm not at all comparing myself to Mark Twain. Don't misunderstand me there. But I decided I'm going to write a story about a little girl who is very ingenious, like Huck Finn. She gets into tight places and she figures out how to get out of these tight places. She's got a big heart like Huck Finn, and she helps people out like Huck Finn, and she has lots of adventures.
Okay, so there is the story in reference to Huckleberry Finn where the child teams up with another child, in this case an African American who's in a cell of some sort, and she helps him escape, and that's where the monster is.
It's a story of a little boy who has been kidnapped, and she goes to visit her grandmother in Chicago and finds out about this, and is able to rescue him. And I don't want to give too much away.
No.
You got to read the book.
And the book is ideal for kids 8 to what? What is the age range?
8 to about 14 or so. But as a friend of mine said, a contemporary of mine said, he said you should post it from anywhere from children from 6 to 90. So.
All right. Now, this originally started off as a screenplay, if I understand correctly.
Yes,
or somewhat like that. How did that happen?
Somewhat like it. Mm-hmm. What did you say?
How did that start off as a screenplay? What was the concept behind that?
I started off as a writer writing screenplays. And so after I decided that I didn't want to write screenplays, I realized, hey, this is a good story, and I think it would be even better in a book. And so I took the I used what I'd written in the screenplay and developed a novel around it.
Okay. And are you planning a sequel for this?
So many people have asked me that, and especially people who have read the book. My grandchildren want me to write a sequel, but so far I haven't. And I don't know that I will. Okay.
So you only have the one middle school style book, a young reader's book, but then you also have 2 adult books, which are totally different from each other as well. So we'll get to that in a moment, but let's go ahead and take a break. Let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you.
The Fire in the Rock by Charles Henderson Norman was named to Kirkus Review's list of the best books of the year in 2016. It is the story of the Exodus as told by Zipporah, Moses' widow, long after the fact. But it is not a conventional Bible storybook. It will challenge non-believers, but it will challenge believers as well, with a human perspective on a story that you have never heard.
Available on Amazon as a paperback, ebook, or Audible. Do you send book sales to a company that takes most of your money? Want to earn more money from your book sales? Do you want a bookstore that supports you? Introducing a new bookstore for indie authors and small press, B4R.store. Earn up to 80% of your book sales and learn how to market yourself. B4R.store.
Welcome to IndieLector.store, an online bookstore where the discriminating reader can find award-winning books. IndieLector.store is not a big corporation, so we can give up to 80% of the sales directly to the author. Help us support them by buying a great book at indielector.store.
Join us for the 6th Annual Authors Marketing Event in Granbury, Texas on July 23rd to the 25th, 2021, where authors share ideas and learn from the professionals over a 2-day weekend. Receive your book marketing certification from the only organization in the world that has been doing it for 5 years, Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-based organization that supports authors from around the world. Learn more at ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. Sponsored by indielector.store, a bookstore that pays authors their fair share.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. We are Indie Beacon Show, and I have with us Barbara Francis. And welcome back, Barbara. We were talking earlier about your children's middle-aged or middle school young adults book, but you also have then 2 adult books. One of them is called Like I Used to Dance. Now, right off the bat, that sounds like a book that is designed or written by somebody who was a dancer, but that's really not the case in this book, is it?
No, it isn't. No. I got the title, the main character becomes a painter, and her daughter, as a young girl, was a dancer. And one day the girl comes in, and well, she's a young woman at that time, and she sees her mother's artwork, her mother's paintings, and she's just taken away from it, away with it. And she says, "Oh, Mother," she says, "you paint like I used to dance." And so that's where the title came from.
Okay, but the story is more
about dance.
The story is more kind of like I want to say a biography, but not really. So tell us more about the story.
Well, it's a family story. It takes place in the 50s, and it deals with a lot of different topics. It's a lot of deals with family dynamics, deals with racial issues that were prevalent at that time, or are still prevalent. It deals with even rape. A young woman, one of the daughters does spend some time in a convent. And I guess it's not at all autobiographical, but I did use a lot of information from things, my past, my hometown, the people that I knew, and, loosely based on some of those things and the events in my life.
So what possessed you to want to write this? I mean, it's totally different than the children's book you first wrote. So what was the motivation? What encouraged you to write this one?
That's a hard question to answer. I'm sort of at a loss as how the muse works. It's like an idea comes to you, and you feel like you just want to write that story. I really don't know how to answer that question.
Okay. So you have a very interesting family dynamics here. You have 3 kids that all are in various types of relationships. That in itself, having 3 different types of relationships that are almost polar opposites. What was the motivation there? I mean, why that? I mean, were you really trying to show the time period, how strange and different it was? help me understand why the three different types of children growing up and their relationship status.
Well, that too, it's, there are three individuals. And so these individuals are performing in the way that they perform. I really don't know that I understand the question.
Okay, so for example, you have one that falls in love with a socialite from New York who's Jewish, and they're Catholic. You have another one that chooses to be a nun, as you said earlier, which kind of falls into what you did. And then you have another one who's into a relationship that's full of abuse. So, I mean, that's a wide variety of subject matter.
That's right. And I feel like, this is sort of realistic. This is the way life happens. I mean, children, the youngest one falls into this abusive relationship sort of by accident. She thought that she was pregnant, and so she married him. The older, the one who falls in love with the Jewish girl from his town, from his community, has more or less rebelled against his family, in that he does not want to be a farmer as his father is, and so he has different ideas about life than his parents do. So, and then the middle child, and another thing is how the children are positioned in the family. That makes a big difference sometimes, the way children turn out, and the life paths that they choose is just the placement of the children in the family.
Okay. Well, I don't want to go into any too much more there, because we don't want to give away the storyline and stuff like that, but there's definitely a lot for people to chew on and work with.
Right.
So your last book that you've written out is Shadow's Way, which is totally different again from all the other books. So you really love playing different types of storylines, don't you?
Yes, I do. And
Okay,
the book that I'm working on now is totally different too.
All right, we'll touch upon that in the next segment, but I want to make sure we get Shadow's Way in, because this is set back in the late, I would say 1800s, mid 1800s, when an antebellum is still around. And
No. That book, that takes place in like in the 60s, 80s, in the 80s. But it's that this woman is living in that particular time. She lives in the antebellum days.
Okay.
The main character. So no, it's a modern day. It takes place. It's a modern day story. Well, if you consider the 80s modern, but contemporary. But it's placed in the 80s. But the main character, who has inherited this antebellum home, which she actually grew up there, and then she goes back and reclaims it, and she becomes a part of it, and goes back into that period of time.
Okay, so that explains the cover, because it looks like something from the 1800s.
Right.
So what was the motivation for that one? Because again, it's totally different than the other two you've done. So what inspired you?
Well, I remember very distinctly, we were on vacation and we were going through the Deep South, and we were in Alabama, and one of the things that we did was to tour an antebellum home. And as I was walking through this home, this character came to me, and that's really about, it's almost, maybe a little bit magical. It sounds a little bit strange, but I just saw this woman walking through, in my mind's eye, not that I was seeing things, but in my mind's eye, I saw this woman walking through those rooms and reliving her past.
I was going to ask if it was a ghost you might have seen and stuff.
No, it wasn't a ghost. It was my imagination.
Well, a lot of the writers I know have these people talking in their heads about their stories and stuff like that. So I'm sure
there's definitely the muse. The muse is definitely there, and I do have a muse. And when the muse is there, I'm really writing away. And when she's gone, I'm really don't have much inspiration. And once I start writing a book too, everything that I've written, the characters take over. Sometimes I have a vague idea in my mind where the plot's going to go and how it's going to go. But then because my books are all character driven, but when I start writing and eventually the character is telling me where it's going. I'm not directing the character is directing me. And so that's, I guess that's about the best I can explain it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of writers say and stuff. So I fully understand that. So in the minute we have left for this segment, give us a little synopsis of what the story is really about. She claims the antebellum home, but there's more to the story than that, right?
Yeah, she, well,
don't give away the secrets, but give us a little something.
It's kind of hard to talk about it without giving it away. She has a father. Well, her father, who is now dead, had a relationship or had a black mistress most of his life, and had a child with this mistress who looks exactly like this woman, except that she's black. And this particular woman, Elaine Chauvier is her name. Elaine's mother was insane. She ended up killing herself. So the woman has a lot of reasons to be as insane as she is. And the story takes place when her half-sister and her and her nephew come back to the home place, and she has this tremendous fear that she might lose her home. It's the Shadow's Way is the name of the house, and it's a person. It's a person. It becomes a living thing to her, and she goes.
I'll stop you right there because it sounds like you might be giving away something we don't want.
Okay. All right.
But this is also a good time for us to take a break and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll be right back.
World War II, the Holocaust and a mysterious package arrives in New York from Germany 40 years after the war, involving 3 families across the oceans. Mystery, intrigue, and correcting the most heinous of wrongs. This is just part of the story Michael Newman tells in his book, Between These Walls. Available in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at indielector.store. Buy it today and enjoy this thriller of a novel. Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, indielector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at indielector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at indielector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's indielector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20. Dear Texas is proud to present the Lone Star Festival on May 29, 2021 from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., where Texas authors, artists, and creatives come together for a Texas-sized event at the Seguin Coliseum, Seguin, Texas. Sponsored by Indie Lector, Authors Marketing Guild, and the City of Seguin. A perfect event for those who enjoy the creative arts. Register for your free tickets and prizes at lonestar.bookfestival.network. Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. We are Indie Beacon show, and I have Barbara Francis. We've been talking about her 3 books, which are a wide range of items. One of them is a middle school young adult book. Then she has her 50s book, which is Like I Used to Dance, almost said it wrong. And then her latest book, Shadow's Way. But you're also working on another book, correct?
Yes, I am.
And how far along are you with that? When do you plan on having it out?
I hope by the end of the year.
Good,
to
so it's
have it
pretty
out.
close. What's the title?
Oh, yeah, we are. We're already in September. Well, it might be the beginning of next year. I don't know for sure. It depends on how the muse works. Okay.
Now, do you keep people up to date on how you progress on writing your stuff? Or do you give little tidbits on your website or anything like that, or social media?
No, I don't do anything like that. I was a teacher for 25 years and I was ruled by the bell. And so now that I'm retired, I do not set up deadlines for myself. Grades aren't due on a certain day anymore. I don't have to have these papers graded by a certain time. So I'm relaxed. Some days I write 2 or 3 hours. Some days I write maybe 30 to 45 minutes, and some days I don't write at all. And it doesn't bother me. I'm not going to be, I don't know, controlled by this. I write because I love to write, and I write when I want to write.
Okay.
But otherwise, I have fun.
So people can find your books, of course, on Amazon and the usual bookstores, but you also have a website, correct?
Yes, with each one of my books, I have a website, and it's just the name of the book, like lottiesadventure.com or likeIusedtodance.com or shadowsway.com.
Okay, and they can also go to barbarafrancis.com and get all of them
That's
there
right.
at the same time.
That's
Okay.
right.
Do you have any social media accounts people can follow, like Twitter, Facebook, anything like that?
No, I don't do any of that. Mm-mm.
No. You staying in this as a country girl and keeping it to the minimum. Okay, not a
That's right.
problem. So once you're
right.
done with the next book that you're writing on, do you have other books in the back of your mind?
You mean besides the one that I'm working on now? Do I
Yeah.
have other books in mind? No.
Yeah, things
not at
thinking
all.
in the back of your mind.
No, not any.
No?
No, sometimes, I'll come up with an idea, I might jot something down, but I have no idea what the next one's going to be. I just want to get through, I want to finish this one. And I really do trust my instincts and my muse. I figure if I'm going to write another book, something will come to me. Or there'll be a story there that needs to be told.
Okay. I have one last question for you, and this is for future writers. What words of advice would you give somebody who wants to get into writing?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to think about whether you really, really do want to do this, and just write. Just write. That's the main thing, is to sit down and write, and try not to be too harsh a judge of yourself. When you let other people read your works, make sure that there are people that are constructive and not destructive. People that will point out the good things that you're saying and point out the areas that maybe you need to work on. And stay away from the negative people. And as far as having a schedule, some writers say, well, you should get up every day and, write from 8 to 10, or you should do this. I don't have any shoulds in my life, and or very, very few. And I think it's best to kind of stay away from the shoulds as much as you can. Go with your muse. And I guess that's something else I'd like to say, is try to get in touch with that muse, that creative part of you, that part that knows sometimes more than what you know yourself.
Okay. Well, that's a perfect spot for us to end the show. I thank you very much for being with us. And
Thank you
again,
so much.
people can find Barbara's books at barbarafrancis.com. Thank you very much, Barbara, and best of luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with the host, B Alan Bourgeois.
Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B Alan Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B Alan Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord